Hello, thanks for watching. My name's Adam and I'm the writer and illustrator of the Rock and Roll London comic book fanzine. I'm a journalist and walking tour guide. I work for London Walks, and on Fridays in the afternoon and Wednesdays in the evening I lead the Rock and Roll London walking tour. The Rock and Roll London comic book fanzine is part comic book, part review, and part self-guided walking tour to accompany the Rock and Roll London walk. The style here that I'm aiming for is not detailed caricature, the like of Martin Rowson or Steve Bell. I'm going for a minimal, more cartoon than caricature style. The starting point was the sleeve for Blur's greatest hits from around the year 2000. Julian Opie is the designer at work there, and it's very plain, very intriguing and minimal style. That's the starting point. The eyes, for example, in Julian Opie's work, the eyes are simply dots like that. I've borrowed here, this is Syd Barrett, the founder of Pink Floyd, and I've borrowed from Steve Bell the Thatcher's mad eye, Margaret Thatcher's one crazy eye, from his caricatures of that Prime Minister. A technique he later transferred onto his drawings of Tony Blair, one single mad eye. Here I've given Syd Barrett, rather than a mad eye, a psychedelic eye to suggest his fondness for hallucinogenic drugs. So the one spirally eye there, borrowed from Steve Bell. The obligatory Hendrix perm is next, to quote from Roger Waters in The Wall. Shaggy, 60s, late 60s perm there. And in this incarnation, Syd is wearing his King's Road finery, his ascot scarf like Freddy out of Scooby-Doo. Given that the Rock and Roll London walking tour is the only walking tour with its own dedicated comic book, I thought it only appropriate that I should give you a quick guided tour of the sketchbooks that led to issue 2 of the Rock and Roll London comic book starring The Who. The starting point is Pete Townshend, and the starting point with Pete Townshend, as Pete Townshend is no doubt sick of hearing, is his splendid nose. Alongside that famous nose, I've tried to highlight something with the eyes, something of Townshend's creative sensibility. The suggestion that these clear peepers can perhaps see for miles and miles, that there's a lot going on behind blue eyes. Daltrey, all jutting chin and scowl, is easy to capture in any period. In his mod finery, handsome indeed, and in his 1970s rock god incarnation, and also very enjoyable to draw. Pete Townshend's nose, however, created something of a problem when coming to draw John Entwistle, whose nose was no less splendid. It becomes confusing which one's Pete Townshend. He was the hardest of all to capture, so I broke him down into elements, notably the hair, and in the 1970s, the moustache. The 1960s hair was interesting to tackle. There's something rather simian about the bass player's haircut in this period, but when he really comes into his own is the 1970s, with that spectacular haircut, long at the back, with the straight fringe just above his eyebrows, and the Zapata moustache, looking every inch the 1970s bass player. He was no slouch in the cartooning department himself. Look only to the sleeve of The Who by Numbers to see his very fine work. I greatly enjoyed drawing the smashing guitars. Most fun of all was to be had from trying to ascertain in cartoon terms what sort of a noise such smashing guitars would make. I alighted on the word crung. I was inspired here, of course, by The Who's album A Quick One. Last but not least is, of course, the drummer, Keith Moon. Piecing Keith Moon together, beginning with the thick eyebrows, almost like makeup, putting beneath them the big sad eyes. The overall effect is that of a circus clown, rather poignant perhaps, given his fabled antics as documented in the Rock and Roll London comic book. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening, thanks for reading, and we'll see you out there soon on the Rock and Roll London Walk.